My name is Hunter Lovins. I am president of Natural Capitalism Solutions. We work with companies, communities, countries on ways to implement more regenerative processes profitably. Years ago, I was managing 1,000 acres of ground that had been bought by John Denver and given to a foundation, the Windstar Foundation. And the land was degrading. I had read some papers by a man named Allan Savory on ways to use cattle to repair degraded rangeland. And I called up Allan and asked if he would come and help us manage this 1,000 acres of ground. And he did. Allan came up and we walked the land, looking at how there was a grass plant and then a foot away, a meter away, there was another grass plant. You look across it, it looked like grass. But if you look down, there was very little. The grass was all laid over, thatched, because of the belief by the people who had been running it that humans are somehow bad, that we damage land, and that what we needed was just to get people off the land. And when you did that, then the land would be somehow sacred. It wasn't, it was dying. We brought cattle in, we used electric fencing, we did planned grazing, we properly managed the livestock. And within 2 years' time, we had a wetlands, the erosion was being filled in, the grass was getting dense and green and thick. And the neighbors all said, "Wow, what did you do?" All we did was put cattle on the land. And I've been a fan of Allan's and of holistic management ever since. We put our land manager through the full holistic training. I helped Allan edit his book, Holistic Management, and we've been friends ever since. That's well over 2 decades ago. Regenerative agriculture is clearly the future. The agriculture that we have now, and indeed the economy that we have now, is degenerative of land, of community, of people. And we're losing rural farmers. Most of them are aging, they're retiring. And so we have Wall Street coming in and buying big tracts of land. The Chinese are buying land around the world. 40% of land now in my country is leased. Who would you rather have managing land? Someone who loves it, who knows it, for whom it is that special place, or a distant corporation? When you begin to implement regenerative agriculture, holistic management, planned grazing in a community, you begin to increase the profits that can come off that land, the viability of the land to support new families, to support the surrounding community. We need to rethink our global economy to be place-based, to honor places. And when you begin to do that, you find that it can be more profitable, you can increase the stocking rate of cattle on the ground. The communities become more viable. When you entrepreneur solutions, entrepreneurs are the job creation engine. In my country, the Kauffman Foundation has found that in every year but 7, from 1977 until now, the big companies have been net job destroyers. Jobs are created by little companies. And you take the work of someone like Joel Salatin at Polyface Farms, where everyone who comes onto the farm is an entrepreneur, is creating new little businesses that add to the profitability of the overall operation. And you take that writ large across all of our economies. You rebuild the health of the soil, the health of the farms, the ranches, the health of rural community and ultimately the health of Main Street and of Wall Street. We are reinventing a global economy from the bottom up, from this commitment to managing land holistically. Throughout history, civilizations that have mistreated their soil have died. And we're getting fairly close to it. Winston Churchill once said Americans can be counted on to do the right thing once they've exhausted all alternatives. The world's getting rather close to having exhausted all alternatives. We're faced with climate catastrophe, with desertification of land around the planet, loss of species. And we have the answers. When you properly manage land, it puts carbon back into the soil. This may turn out to be the only thing that can save humanity. Taking carbon out of the air, putting it back into the soils, may be the way to decarbonize the atmosphere fast enough to avoid the worst of the ravages of the climate crisis. And when you do that, again, you're revitalizing local community, you're revitalizing the economy. It all fits together. How do we get started to build this new economy, to heal our world? Think about what you buy every day. We all eat. Where does your food come from? Is it grown by someone who cares about their piece of land and is farming it, is ranching it in ways that are regenerative of the land, of community? Or are you buying industrial food? Industrial food may be a little cheaper, but it's poisoning you, it's poisoning the land, it's poisoning our world. So every one of us every day, vote with our dollars. Interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal about how consumers are asking for grass milk. Now, I drink grass milk because it tastes better. It costs a little bit more, but fine, I'll cut out the Oreos. I can live without the junk food, but I want grass milk. And so I ask for it when I go to the grocery store. And I shop at stores that carry it. I eat grass beef because it tastes better. Oh, and because it has higher levels of omega-3 oils, even than fish. When I think about what I'm putting into my body, which is what makes me who I am, I want the finest food grown by people who care, grown with love. It makes me healthier. People ask how I do what I do. I pretty much run 24/7, sleep a couple hours and go again. I'm on an airplane. I'm home. I have a beautiful ranch, but I'm there less than a quarter of the time because I'm coming to conferences, I'm consulting with companies, I'm meeting with governments. People say, how do you do that? Good beef. When you eat good food, you have the energy, you have the ability to live your life to the fullest. So how we make buying decisions can change the economy. There's a lot that we don't know about how fast we can take carbon out of the air and put it into soil. And answering that question is really important. If it turns out, as many of us believe, that the way in which we're now ranching and farming is taking carbon out of the ground and putting it into the soil, is decarbonizing the soil, and that the only way we're going to save humanity is to find ways to reverse that, and that as many of us have practiced, we can see carbon building up in the soil. We can see gray, sandy soil turning brown, turning darker as the organic matter goes into the soil. We can see the health of the grass. We can count the number of microorganisms. We can see the depth of the root systems. And we believe that this is taking carbon out of the air, putting it back into the soil. If it's doing it as fast as we believe that it is, this can be done the world around by anyone who has a farm, has a ranch, has a piece of ground that they can manage. We don't know how fast it can happen, and science on that would be really nice. We're starting to get the early science now showing that land that's managed holistically is gaining carbon year on year and gaining organic matter. And if we can do the calculations on how fast that is and show that this is the most important technology to combat climate change, this will be game-changing. So the scientists are very important. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the soils that grow our food. And that needs to change. All of life comes from the soil. All that we eat comes from the soil. And a healthy soil is the only way we are going to have healthy bodies, healthy communities, and a healthy economy. So the scientists are critical, but that's not to say that any of us that are doing this work should slow down until the science is there. Because we know it, we've seen our ground improve. We've seen the stocking capacity of cattle, of animals on ground improve. We've seen our own personal economics improve. So let's keep doing this stuff, but come on, academia, we could use a little help here. So many people now look at the future and despair. Young people think they don't have a future. My old boss, David Brower, used to say, what do we want the Earth to be like 50 years from now? Do a little dreaming, he said. Aim high. Navigators have aimed at the stars for centuries. They haven't hit one yet, but because they aimed high, they found their way. What is a vision of the future that you would like to see? Mine is, as my friend Buckminster Fuller said, a world that works for 100% of humanity. The only way I know to get there is this concept of a regenerative economy, of an economy that is rooted in place, in places that we love, an economy that is in service to life, that embodies economic democracy, in which we have a say over the economy that impacts us. There are a team of us that are working on laying out the principles of what a regenerative economy would be, so watch this space. But I think it's a much better future than thinking that all that we're facing is devastation and collapse and the destruction of all that we love. And we know from the stories that are emerging of the farmers, the ranchers, the little communities that are rebuilding themselves and building strong local economies, that we can do this. I've been honored to work with Allan Savory, with Jody Butterfield for over 2 decades. And I have seen what this approach, holistic management, can do to devastated lands, to family farms, family ranches that were teetering on the edge and now have economic viability. Holistic management is probably the best framework that anyone has ever come up with yet for how to achieve authentic sustainability in our lives, in our families, in our homes, not just on ranches, but in community, and for our economy as a whole. Holistic management, I believe, is the route to creating a regenerative future.